Welcome to Talk Dizzy to Me, the show that brings you a comprehensive look into the complex field of dizziness. Now here are your hosts, vestibular physical therapist Dr. Abby Ross and Dr. Danielle Tolman.
Welcome back, everyone, to Talk Dizzy to Me. My name is Dr. Abby Ross. I'm a vestibular physical therapist joined by Dr. Danielle Tolman, also a vestibular physical therapist. And today we have the migraine food expert on our show for a special episode where we take you perhaps back to your childhood. We'll talk about that in a second, but welcome to the show, Alicia Wolf, also known as the Dizzy Cook.
Thank you, guys, and thank you for having me back. I'm excited to cook today.
Yes, these episodes are so fun for us. One, it's a little bit different than our normal setup of just interview style conversation. In these episodes, we actually get to cook and make things and enjoy them. And we hope you also enjoy them at home. But I want to segue into today's show with a little bit of an aside. I was on vacation this past weekend with a big group of people, and we did a little icebreaker activity where we went around the table and we said what our favorite fast food childhood restaurant was. And many people said McDonald's. And while that wasn't my favorite was Taco Bell. I was thinking back to, oh my gosh, it was such a special treat on Sundays or on Fridays or after gymnastics or something where we would go through the drive-thru and get McDonald's. And I remember my dad would always get a Big Mac. I'd get a Happy Meal, but I always would have a bite of his Big Mac. And today, that is what we're bringing you back to. We have Big Mac burger bowls. That's a mouthful on the agenda. So Alicia, tell us about this recipe.
Yeah, so this recipe kind of came out of a similar concept. What I've noticed is really popular with a lot of my followers are those fast food recipes, those comfort food recipes. And I've even seen on TikTok a little bit where people have said like going through the McDonald's drive-thru can actually help their migraine attacks. So you try to balance that and what could actually be helping them with their migraine attacks, like from a scientific viewpoint and what's in those Big Macs that could be helping, and balance that with, okay, how do we make this not into a fast food recipe with all these like additives, flavorings, corn syrup, these things that maybe not be great long-term for our brain health, but doing it in an easy way. You can do it quickly with your family. Everyone will love it, and it is better for your brain health. Plus, you have those benefits that you'd be getting from the comfort food, the little extra, for some people it's extra sodium, for some people it's the iron in the beef. Whatever it is that's contributing, it seems to help a lot of people with their attacks. So I'm excited to share that with you guys today.
This recipe looks absolutely awesome. I love that how simple it is. Honestly, I didn't have to go shopping for this episode. I had everything already in my kitchen, which is great because I'm definitely giving that post-work mom vibe right now.
Same.
So I'm doing this now, and I get to feed my family tonight. It's absolutely perfect. So where do we start?
Same. So actually, we're going to start with the special sauce. It's like that Big Mac burger sauce. And generally what you'll see, like if you look online with their ingredients, they're adding a lot of like sugar, corn syrup, extra flavorings. And so you don't really need to do that to get the same flavors here. So I'm going to start with a half a cup of mayonnaise. And actually what I like to do, this completely depends on the person, but if you're like me, you're trying to add a little more protein in your diet, I like to add a little bit of homemade yogurt and cut the recipe in half. So I'll do like a quarter cup of the mayo, and then I'll do a quarter cup of yogurt. It's fine if you just have all mayo. You can do a half a cup of mayonnaise. That's like more accurate. But if you're trying to add a little extra protein to your meals, keep you fuller for longer, and then, enjoy those like gut health benefits of the fermented food, then you can do that. I will say the yogurt is not necessarily always migraine friendly. So this is kind of a journey that I had to go on personally, where yogurt was like a huge trigger for me for a long time. And I used to eat it every day. I loved yogurt. And then when I did the migraine elimination diet, which was the Johns Hopkins diet or heal your headache, people call it different things, but it has you eliminate yogurt for a time period. And when I reintroduced it, I noticed that I was getting horrible vertigo attacks. So I left it out for a little while, and I tried to reintroduce it over the past 8 to 9 years that I've lived with migraine, and it hasn't necessarily gone well for me. So I'm kind of segueing it here into a story, but I think it's interesting. So I asked a lot of my readers, like, what kind of store-bought yogurt do you tolerate? And a lot of them had said the Icelandic provisions did really well for them. And I noticed that the bacterial cultures in it are different from like other types of Greek yogurts. And so I tried it and I did pretty well with it. And so that actually inspired me to start making my own yogurt in a lower histamine way. So I'll use my Instant Pot and I go through the whole process, and that way I can control whatever starter I use. So you can use like a low histamine starter with it. So this is a recipe I really want to work on for those migraine patients, the people who are sensitive to histamine, tyramine, those kind of people, as like a good way to start reintroducing yogurt into your diet after you finish, elimination, or if you find yourself sensitive. But for this recipe, we'll go ahead and we'll add you can do the 1/2 cup of mayo. You can do the 1/2 and 1/2 like what I do with the yogurt. It's completely up to you. This is my homemade yogurt that I do. You can see it's like extra creamy. And it's just become like a fun thing that I do on weekends now. And like the difference in the taste and the flavor is like insane. So I really like it for this sauce, especially because you really don't notice it in there, and then it adds some extra protein. But the mayonnaise is more just mayonnaise is kind of the more traditional way to do it. We're going to use the Grillo's Pickles. So this is my favorite brand, especially for those people on a migraine diet. Technically, pickles are kind of one of those questionable things because as foods age, they build up in tyramine and histamine. So with Grillo's pickles, they're more of like a quick pickle. They expire. They're not there on the shelves for months and months. And they taste really fresh. And you can get them at a really good price at Costco. So they're the closest to making like homemade quick pickles, which I have a recipe for on my website. But this is just kind of one of those easy shortcuts if you don't feel like making your own,
Now, would you find those in the refrigerator section, or are they shelf stable?
No, they're in the refrigerator section, which makes them a little more fresh. Yeah. So that's kind of why they're a little more migraine friendly. They're not on the shelves for months and months. I need a knife. So we're going to take these 4 to 5 pickles here and just chop them up. It's going to end up being like a 1/4 cup of chopped pickles or around that. And you just want to kind of rough chop these and add them to your mayonnaise mixture. So we're going to do that. We're going to do 3 tablespoons of ketchup. So I'm just using this Whole Foods organic tomato ketchup. It's got, decent ingredients in it, no corn syrup or anything like that. It's just cane sugar. If you are sensitive, this does have onion powder. So if you're sensitive to onion powder or doing a migraine elimination diet, Fadi has a really good ketchup that's onion free that you can use. So we're just going to add 3 tablespoons of ketchup here. And you can see I'm kind of eyeballing it. So you can do that. This recipe is pretty forgiving.
Thank goodness.
So don't feel like you have to measure everything exactly. If you kind of know your amounts, it's easy to add. I've got a little bit of yellow mustard. You could also add Dijon mustard here if you want to. And you can see we're already kind of getting that classic like burger sauce look. It's that easy.
You are reminding me of my grandmother, because when I ask her how she makes her famous chocolate chip cookies, she says, oh, just a little of this, a little of that. And I'm like, no, Gram, I need measurements.
I can relate to that.
You know, that's how my mom is too. Like, she's like, no, I need the measure. I need exactly. She loves to measure it out. That was like the hardest thing about starting the Dizzy Cook for me is like, once you start cooking and knowing what flavors go together, you just kind of throw everything together and you don't measure it. And so having to like write everything out was a big challenge for me. And it was kind of annoying because I'm like, I have all these extra dishes to do now. We're going to add a little bit of distilled white vinegar. This is the only vinegar that's usually permitted on migraine diets, but I find it's also the best vinegar here for these flavors, just to kind of give some acidity to the sauce. And then we're going to work with our spices. So I have half a teaspoon of paprika. These I am going to measure. Half a teaspoon of paprika, and then you want half a teaspoon of garlic powder. That'll go in. And then something that I don't ever see in a lot of recipes for this, but I think has the best flavor is shallots. So I get a lot of pushback sometimes from people on a migraine diet. They're like, wait, shallots are onions, right? And they're not considered onions. Actually, in cooking school, they taught us like shallots are more closely related to the garlic family. So if you notice garlic, you peel cloves, and it's the same thing with shallots. They've got like that clove kind of shape to them where you can peel them apart, versus even though they kind of look like an onion inside, they're shaped like those garlic cloves. So shallots are permitted on a migraine diet as well as green onions. So those are two onion flavors that you can use, even though onion as a whole is an elimination food. Just from my own experience over the years, I've noticed that dried onion powder, dried onion powder and things like ketchup, those all seem to be pretty well tolerated. I don't find a lot of people to react to that. Where I see more people react are things like raw onions, especially like raw red onion. So if you're having trouble with onion in your diet, or you're noticing some dizziness or symptoms around that, I would encourage to start using dried onion powder and see how that goes for you. With dried shallots, I find that the flavor they provide it's got that oniony flavor, but it's got a little bit of garlic, and it's a lighter, less harsh flavor than onion is. And so I really love them in this particular sauce. So they're worth the extra order or try to find them. Some people, it's easy to find them. Sometimes it's harder. You can order them on Amazon if you can't find them in your grocery store. And we're just gonna, go ahead.
I was gonna say, I'm glad you explained that, because I noticed when working on this migraine event that we're having tonight and going through all of your recipes, which are amazing, that I noticed that shallots were a common ingredient in a lot of those different things that I was looking at that looked really yummy. And I'm glad that there was a good explanation for that, because I just thought you really like shallots.
Yeah, I mean, I do really love shallots. So I started eating and cooking with more shallots when I started the migraine diet. And then once I started that, I'm like, wait, this is way better than onion is, because I find the flavor just to be so much more refined. And you'll find it a lot in French cooking. I mean, that's why they use shallots and everything versus onion. It's just a little bit of a lighter flavor. Here you guys are getting a peek of my fridge. I got iced coffee and everything. So let's try to balance that in there.
Really good. Tried yourself.
Okay. We are going to, I'm going to go heat my pan really quickly. I would say, and I'll bring you guys over here in a second. I'm using a large cast iron pan, which is what I would recommend to most people doing this recipe. Cast iron is great for a few reasons. It's like non-toxic cookware. You don't have to worry about scratching it like you do with coated pans nonstick pans, it lasts forever. It's virtually nonstick if you heat it right. And you can get it to a really, really high heat. So why we want our pan to be a high heat for this recipe is we want to sear that beef to get like that nice caramelization on top, similar to how you would with like a blacktop grill, or like how they would normally fry burgers at a fast food restaurant. So we want that pan to heat up without anything in it first. And this is only if you're using like a cast iron pan or stainless steel. Those are the pans that you can heat up without anything in them. If you're using like a non-stick pan or something like that, this doesn't work quite as well with those, but you always want to heat that up with higher heat oil. So we are using avocado oil for this recipe because it's a higher heat oil than olive oil. So it can withstand those higher temperatures that we need to sear the beef. For this recipe, I'm using an 85-15% fat, which is normally what you would get at like a burger place, because that fat is going to make it really delicious. If you want to, this also works with like a 93.7. I would just be conscious that like a little bit of fat in it adds a lot of flavor, and it also helps it to sear better in the pan, gives us more of that nice caramelization. And we'll drain some of the fat off after we finish cooking. I also have ground bison, and this is great too. If you are looking for, you know, a way to kind of mix up your beef, or like if you're someone like me that struggles with low ferritin, trying to get those ferritin levels up, this is a good way to kind of vary your diet too. But obviously, if we want it to be more like the traditional, we're going to use the ground beef. So I'm going to take you guys over with me. I'm going to move my camera and just ask anyone watching to look away while they do that. Actually, what I'm going to do first, I take that back. So I got a little shallot here. I'm going to chop up to have that ready to throw into our pan.
What do you do? You just cut little rings with that?
Yeah,
shell?
just little little rings like this. And those will just add some flavor. You can do it in rings. You can do it in, you could chop it too in big slices if you want. But that'll just kind of go into our pan, and we can later add that on top of our bowl too. If you somehow forget or whatever, you can always chop it raw, but I think it's a better flavor if you cook it in a little bit of the beef fat. And now I'm going to move you guys. So if anyone's watching, look away.
Trigger warning.
Yeah. That's what I always tell people when I'm doing these migraine vestibular episodes, is you got to look away when the time is right. Okay, I'm really hoping this doesn't splash when I get it in here, but we'll see. Okay, so I'm going to add just a little bit of avocado oil to my pan. And you definitely want to do this if you're working with a lower fat beef. But if you have like a higher fat beef, you don't always need to add a lot of fat to your pan. Okay. I'm going to open up my beef. Am I going too fast, or is this okay? Okay, this is a very easy, quick recipe, but sometimes with me chatting, it can take longer.
Put the beef right in?
Okay, yes. Drop the beef into your hot pan, and then I'm gonna wash my hands super fast. Okay. And then we're gonna use a spatula to press it into the pan. So you're gonna hear that nice like sizzle here. You wanna get it really in that pan. Don't chop it like you would a taco. Just press it down into the pan. And I have my heat on like a medium high heat. So try to get your beef to be on the thinner side, and then just leave it and let it sear there. And we're just going to let this cook for about 2 to 3 minutes and then check it and flip it. And it should have like a nice dark sear to it whenever we flip it over.
And this is where we rely on you, Alicia, because if it's up to me, these will burn.
It's okay to have a little bit of a char on it. That's more of that classic flavor, isn't it? I remember we used to always get Big Mac bowls after my dad. He, my poor dad, I was so into ballet and stuff like that, and he really wanted me to like golf. And so he did whatever he could to get me to like golf. And I was pretty good at golf too. He always says, "Oh, Alicia, if you would have followed that, you would have been real." I'm like, okay. But he would always take me to McDonald's after the golf, and I think that was his way of like trying to get me to like.
Oh my gosh, my poor daughters are in the same boat right now. So I can already hear them saying this years from now.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. I grew up with a lot of like Chick-fil-A too. So I'm currently working on a recipe. We're trying to recreate the kale crunch salad with I'm trying to do air fryer chicken bites on top of it. So have you seen like the viral reels where everyone like puts the chicken bites on top of the kale crunch salad? So I'm trying to do a healthier way of that. That's migraine friendly.
That sounds great.
Because Chick-fil-A, even in their grilled nuggets, they put MSG, like a ton of MSG in their stuff. So yeah, so I'm trying to like find a way to do that. We'll see how that turns out. That's my goal for next month, is to get that up. Okay, so this is pretty good here. I'll show you how it is. You can see, can y'all see how like brown,
Yeah.
how good and brown that is there? That's what it should look like. Have that nice sear on it.
So in the small town that I grew up in, we basically had two options, McDonald's or Arby's.
Okay.
We had to drive about 40 minutes for my Taco Bell.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my gosh. So you guys really had to commit to it if you were going to do that, huh?
It was like, I remember in high school when, our friends started being able to drive, and that was like the big thing to do. We're going to drive to the big city, quote unquote, for some Taco Bell.
I got distracted with all the talking, but normally when you put the beef down, you just want to sprinkle your garlic powder on top. I think the recipe is like a teaspoon, and then we add a little bit of smoked paprika. I think it's like 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon. The smoked paprika, obviously adding the garlic powder and the smoked paprika isn't super necessary, but the smoked paprika adds a little bit of that smoky flavor, like if it were on the grill. So that's kind of why I add it in that recipe. You just want to touch, not to overpower it. And then we're just going to season it with some kosher salt. I always tell people I use diamond kosher salt in recipes, and usually I leave salt to taste in most recipes, unless you like literally can't taste it because it's a health hazard. But I like to do salt to taste in case I have someone who's like a Meniere's patient and a migraine patient, which is tricky because sodium can sometimes be helpful for migraine patients, especially like the ones who say they love like going to McDonald's for like the salty fries or the burgers after their attack. But then I have a lot of crossover sometimes with the Meniere's patients who have to do low sodium. So you can make this recipe fairly low sodium if you use your favorite like lower sodium condiments. But you would just omit the added salt to this. I use salmon kosher salt, which is usually what a lot of chefs will use in their cookbooks. So sometimes I'll see people say, oh, that recipe was too salty. It's because diamond kosher salt has a different molecular structure than other types like Morton's kosher salt. So with Morton's kosher salt, you'll definitely get a more salty flavor than you would with diamond. So it's kind of interesting, some interesting facts there. And you can start to break this up a little bit into larger pieces, but not like the taco. We don't want like taco meat, but you know, larger bite-sized pieces are good for this recipe. And you just transfer them out of your pan here. I didn't end up with a ton of leftover fat to drain here, but if you do, you can just drain that out, or use like a paper towel to kind of wipe it up. We just want a little bit of it to saute our shallots in, or onions if you want to do that. But I already did my whole spiel on onions. So I'm just going to add this in here and saute that down a little bit until these are softened. And your beef, this is really hot right now, but this will just saute for like 1 to 2 minutes. So while we're chatting, you don't want like caramelized onions, but you can kind of see you got these crispy pieces in here that are dark brown. Yeah. So just very much like, you know, the fast food. And then I'm going to remove these. These are just kind of softened a little. They don't take too long because shallots are so much smaller.
I definitely was a victim to the oil splatter.
Oh no.
If anyone's watching on YouTube, you probably just saw me jump back with a specific look on my face. That's what happened.
Obviously, we didn't hear any swears.
I was on that one.
That would have been funny though. Yeah, so that can happen with a really hot pan if you get any kind of like moisture or water in there. So you just want to be careful too about that, like either whether it's dripping any liquids from the juices from the meat or any kind of liquid, like say you wash something and you put it in the pan. That's where that can kind of happen and splash back up at you. So they do make pan covers too that are really helpful. Sorry, I'm moving you guys. I should have warned. I'm normally really good at that, but I'm trying to work this way through before my chaos comes through that door, which I hear them now.
I'm going to be here in about 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Make a guest appearance and say hello.
Yeah, they might. They really might. Okay, so we're almost done with this recipe. That's how easy it is. You can make this in even a shorter amount of time if you're not chit-chatting and telling everyone about salt and water splatters. Okay, so traditional recipe would have iceberg lettuce in it, I'm using this lettuce I got at the farmer market because better nutritional value. But if you're just craving like that same comfort food, I would recommend to do iceberg, and you can shred it up, or even romaine. We're gonna top that. You can use shredded good quality American cheese. So that would be more like the traditional burger Big Mac with cheese. Two of my favorite brands to do that with that are good quality are Boar's Head and Andrew and Everett. Generally, you want to look for these behind the deli counter and not in like the pre-sliced area. So you can have the deli guy cut you a big block of them and use it to like shred it. Those melt incredibly well, and American cheese has come a long way since the Kraft singles era. So with these brands, they're using like a very young cheddar and Colby to make American cheese rather than like all these additives to it. So that's why they are more migraine friendly. If you're sensitive to even American cheese, you could do like a fresh mozzarella or something. Or today I'm just leaving cheese off my bowl, so you can make it, this whole recipe can be dairy free too if you just leave the cheese out. You want to add, so we're going to do a little bit of the beef here. And so we have our lettuce as the base. We're going to do a little bit of beef on top. And then we have the shallots here. And then you can cut a tomato. I find tomatoes are hit or miss. Tomatoes are actually, I try to encourage people to leave them in their diet. Sometimes people with more histamine issues can have problems with tomatoes, but in my book with Dr. Bay, The Mediterranean Migraine Diet, he did this whole study on tomatoes and like what can be triggering about tomatoes and like how to make them more migraine friendly and why you want to include them in your diet, because they have great benefits for brain health. So I tell people like try to incorporate them in some way if you can tolerate them. So I have this leftover, I have this heirloom tomato that I cut this morning that I got from the farmer's market. So I'm just going to add that in here with some Grillo's pickles.
This looks so good.
And then we just top it with this sauce, which is in my fridge. Oh, and by the way, I've had this cute drink here the whole time, and I haven't even talked about it. This is my ginger, refreshing ginger mocktail. So this is on my website. It's got ginger and a little bit of mint, and it's like great for summer. So I love this one.
That sounds amazing.
It's really good, really refreshing. So yeah, just top it with the sauce, and that's it. You got burger bowl right there. And you could do this with like some air fryer French fries, or like Whole Foods has some decent ones, I think, that are just like French fries and a good quality oil. And or you could just do like make your own with like russet potatoes, like the steak fries. That would be great too.
I'm not
sure. And that's it.
Family to come home to eat this. I might have to just.
I know. I'm gonna plate some of this out a little separately for the kids, but no.
So I might have overdone it with the sauce, but it does look delicious. And also, thank goodness that my whole kitchen cannot be visible right now, because I'm the definition of a messy cook. I do not know how to keep a kitchen clean when I'm cooking.
That's my husband.
That is so
we
good.
End up with like 40 pans for like a one pot pasta. I'm like, how did you do this? What?
The sauce alone, I make this separately and put this on my burgers if we were making
Yeah.
so good. It is so good.
You could do it with like a lot of different things. But it's like really good for dipping those French fries too. So,
I might have to.
and the sauce should last like up to a week in your fridge. And the burger bowls you could do like 2 to 3 days. So they actually make a really great meal prep recipe. I'm actually going to sear more of this bison in there and just have it in the fridge for meal prep for the next 2 to 3 days for all of us.
You're just reading my mind. We've been doing a really good job recently here of trying to cook ahead of time. We've been eating really clean, and it's been fun because I feel like the more recipes that we start to experiment with and really like, the less we're eating out. We're saving money. We're getting less crap in our food. And I have to say, my migraines have been 1,000 times better, even being postpartum, since we've made this shift. So there's a lot of value in that. And I absolutely love your cookbook. I love your recipes. We're showcasing a lot of them for a migraine event that we're hosting tomorrow, including one of your non-alcoholic sangria, which I'm looking really forward to. It's just so amazing. It's easy too.
Yes. Thank you. I've noticed that too myself. Like the more I tell people, like, you don't always have to do the full migraine elimination diet. It doesn't have to be that restrictive. Like if you just cook more at home and like really pay attention to what ingredients you're buying. Like I love this Chosen Foods mayo because it doesn't have any natural flavors or anything like that. And foods don't have to be that way, you know?
Yeah.
So, like the same thing with these pickles. Like you don't need to buy these packaged products with like this huge list of all these things or like colorings in them. So if you just start paying attention to that and like cooking more at home, I think it can make a big difference. We've even noticed the past few months, I've been going to the farmer's market, our local farmer's market, which is just like, it has to be farms within like 100 miles of Dallas. And I've been getting most of my meat there and my vegetables, and it has made a huge difference in the way I feel. Like I haven't noticed a huge shift in the migraine part just because my attacks aren't very frequent anymore. But I have noticed a big shift in like my energy and how just I feel overall. So I think there's something there to that too. I just haven't quite figured that all out yet. So that's like something I'm exploring now is like how that connects to everything that we go through as like people with chronic illness or people with migraine too.
And how would you say the prices of shopping at local farmers markets are compared to grocery store?
So it is a little more expensive. Like I do have one vendor I'll go to and they'll do like a pick of the garden. So it's $25 and I usually get like a massive bag of lettuce and a huge thing of carrots. And then whatever they have in season. So like a few cucumbers or turnips or whatever. So I don't always get to pick exactly what's in it, which is fine for me because it's been able, like I can create recipes from that sometimes. But that's a good way for me to save money. But if I go and I buy everything individually, you know, I'm paying probably about 50 cents more per vegetable. But everything is regeneratively grown. So they don't always have the organic certification because that's like super expensive to do, but they don't use pesticides or anything like that. And what I've seen lately is there's this, it's not even necessarily about buying organic versus non-organic. It's mostly about what soil it's being grown in, because our vegetables and fruits, they absorb that or whatever soil they're in. And so if the soil is just being loaded with pesticide, or it's, you know, draining into the pesticides are draining into that soil or whatever, it's going through the food. And so I need to do like a lot more research on it, but this is just something I've been noticing, like even as I explore, Danny, you probably are familiar with this, but there's been all that controversy around like baby foods and them being high in these, I'm like blanking on it right now.
Metals and things like that.
Yeah, like the heavy metals. Yeah. And so they're like having to go through all that rigorous testing and everything. But a lot of people have said, well, that's just common for the soil. That's just what's in the soil. And so these farms are taking more, if you can find them, they're taking more care with their soil, and they're using regenerative practices to kind of like give back to the land and move their livestock and make sure they're not too much in one area, and not using the pesticides, and you kind of working with the earth. And so this is really how they farm. Like everyone goes to Europe and always says, oh, the food in Europe is so much better, but it's really more about their farming practices and what they're doing over there. So this is just kind of I'm sorry, this is kind of a tangent, but I learned about this because I did this whole cooking. I try to take a cooking class whenever I travel, and I took this really interesting cooking class with this guy in Italy, and he had been a chef all over the world, and he was really into sourcing, and he had like an olive oil guy and a prosecco guy and a cheese guy, but not just any cheese guy. He has his gorgonzola guy, and he's got his parmesan guy. And the one thing I picked up from him was like, these people really care about what they're growing and producing, and they are trying to get the best product out there, and how they're doing that is making sure their livestock are really happy, that their ground is being replenished, and it reflects in what they're producing. And so I've started coming back here and trying to figure out like, okay, how do we make that accessible for more people in the US, and when do we really start to like care about this? And then how does it tie into migraine and chronic illness? I don't know if it really does all that much, but I've noticed with myself, it's helped me feel better. So it's an interesting conversation, and obviously one that needs a lot more like research to it. But at the very top level, I think just cooking more at home is like the best thing you can do.
And something like this that's so easy. And what you were just saying reminded me of, I forget how the quote goes, but it's something like, if you don't pay for your health now, you're going to pay for your sickness later, or something like that. And it's so true. I'd much rather invest, pay a little more, do a little more, be a little more disciplined now than be forced to do it later. So
yeah, that's exactly what Peter was, the chef I worked with, and that's exactly what he said to me. And his wife, it turns out he's the big chef, and his wife was in nutritional sciences, so he got to talk to both of them. I got to talk to him in depth because I went by. So I was like, where do you get your Prosecco? And he's like, well, I get it from the Prosecco guy. You can't get it. And I was like, okay, well, can I come over and pick it up from you? So it was his day off. And so we had a long conversation with him and his wife. And it was like the best part, probably like one of the highlights of my trip, honestly, when that kind of serendipitous stuff happens, but that's exactly what he said. And I have noticed that even though I'm paying a little bit more from the farmer's market, I'm spending less because I'm not buying so many different ingredients and so many packaged foods. Like I'm really like, okay, I got carrots this week. I'm gonna roast those in some olive oil with the turnips and do a roast chicken from the farm, and that's it. So it's like really, really simplifying your meals completely, but using really good quality products. And then I just use herbs in my backyard. And when you have really good food like that, you don't need much to it. You just need the proper way to cook it, and like really good olive oil or really good butter or whatever you're using.
A little of this and a little of that.
Yeah. So I don't know. You guys might see more of my recipe. I'm still going to do, like, obviously I'm still going to do these recreations, but a lot of my recipes heading into fall are going to be more simplified, just taking things back to those really easy, good dinners. So I've got like a pan-seared chicken thigh, one with carrots and radishes, and you do it with a little dill tahini sauce on top of it, and it is like really good. So
I love the idea is simple.
Yeah.
It really simplifies the complexity for patients and the stress that they
Yeah.
go through trying to figure out how to feed themselves and keep themselves feeling good while they're figuring out their diagnosis. So we'll be
For
keeping
sure.
those recipes. And if you're watching
Yeah.
and you're not familiar with Alicia, make sure you check out her cookbooks. She's got the Dizzy Cook Cookbook. You've got the Mediterranean Diet that you co-authored with Dr. Shin Bei, which are all amazing. You've got an amazing, expansive recipe index online on your website, dizzycook.com. So if you're watching and you're salivating like I am, trying not to eat this entire bowl, and we're so thankful for everything with cooking with you today, Alicia. We really appreciate it.
Oh, sure. I'm happy to come back and do something seasonal, if you guys want to.
Yeah, I would love that.
Easy. Yeah.
As for now, I think we're prepared for our summer cookouts because I'm pretty sure you can make this into a big pan and feed everyone and bring yourself back to that childhood Sunday memory at the McDonald's drive-thru. Thank you guys all for listening. Remember to follow the Dizzy Cook, follow Balancing Act Rehab, and we'll see you next time.
This podcast is provided for informational purposes only and is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified healthcare provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
The content of this podcast is based on general knowledge and information available up until the recording of this specific episode. Medical knowledge and practices may evolve over time, and new information may emerge that could change the understanding or treatment of vestibular dysfunction. It is important to consult a qualified healthcare professional for the most up-to-date and personalized advice.
The information provided in this podcast is meant to complement, not replace, the relationship that exists between a patient and their healthcare provider. It is intended to empower patients with knowledge about vestibular dysfunction and its management, but individual cases may vary, and treatment approaches should be tailored to each patient's unique circumstances.
By listening to this podcast, you acknowledge and agree to the terms of this medical disclaimer. The organizers, presenters, and creators of this podcast are not liable for any actions or decisions taken by individuals based on the information presented herein. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider for medical advice and treatment.